Yeah, well, I've got it fixed, so the camera's just on me.
Okay.
But if you talk, people can hear you. You're the
Oh.
strange, discombobulated voice in the background. You're basically, you can be the angel on my shoulder. Hello, Leonard. I'm your conscience. I'm your conscience. Hello, everybody. Welcome along. I know it's Mother's Day in the US, so hopefully you are not watching this. Hopefully you are with your mom and treating her like the goddess that she is, because she taught you well. So hopefully that you are celebrating Mother's Day in fine style. It's not Mother's Day here in the UK. So this is all to the Americans. My Mother's Day is on the 20th. It's her birthday this month, so I've got to go out and start buying presents and stuff. But yes, if you are celebrating Mother's Day, hopefully you're having a good day with that. We are going to dive into the show proper in about 2 or 3 minutes time. Just a quick couple of updates. I've been posting a lot of the interviews and the panels that were done at Portsmouth Comic Con 2 Saturdays ago. Those can all be found on the SoundCloud. So if you search for an Englishman in San Diego on there, I've created a playlist for them as well. So they're all in there. Some great chats with the likes of Will Simpson, Tommy Lee Edwards, even Joel Meadows had a decent panel. I know, how the hell did that work? It's a great show, and there was lots of great content, some fantastic panels. Kieran Gillen in there. Yeah, Liam Sharp had a great chat as well, talking about his resurgence, his renaissance in comics. Do check out the SoundCloud, and also I'm finishing off putting up the shell posts on the Convention Collective, so you can find them all on there as well, including all the photos that I took over the course of the weekend. I did also take a number of photos yesterday at Oldham Comic Con. Do check out the post which I put up today, which is a little bit less like Portsmouth, because I just wanted to put it all in one go. So it's a review, it's a recording of the Al Ewing panel, very interesting stuff about a creator-owned thing that he wants to do later on this year, and also talking about the Marvel 1000 project, which is coming up in August. Which he seems to be writing a lot for, but he explains in the panel why his name shows up a lot. So that's all in there. There's an interview with the organizer as well, which, yeah, it was very informative about how he's put that show together. So do check that out. Also, that I found out this week, we had the Patreon payout. I did put a number of things up on the Patreon as an exclusive. They go live to the public this Thursday. But for those people that have donated to the Patreon and have listened to those interviews, thank you very much indeed for your kind words. I know that 45-minute chat with Kieran Gillen got a lot of people's attention, because we did talk about the closure of his Star Wars run and talking about Die, and also Once and Future, his new book as well. That's on the Patreon. Only it just takes a couple of pennies to just donate. So please, every penny does help. It has allowed me to continue doing this show, because we have the SoundCloud stuff to pay for, we have the hosting to pay for, and it all comes from the donations that you put forward, and I really appreciate it. Do head to patreon.com/EnglishmanSDCC for more information about that. Nicola's here, and while we've got her for a second or two before we do dive into the show proper, is there anything that you kind of would like to shine a light on, even if it's not your own stuff?
I don't know. I mean, we're kicking about, other than my own show, we are kicking about, my publisher that I work for, BHP Comics, we're kicking about a few shows down south. So we're in Shrewsbury at the start of June. We're at Thought Bubble. I think we're back down south in between then as well. And we've got, I think we're going to have Frank Whiteley with us both times to peddle that book. So
yes, I will be hopefully doing the interview with Frank Whiteley.
It's Thought Bubble.
Hopefully doing that panel. So fingers crossed on that one.
Thought Bubble.
No, that would be at Shrewsbury.
Oh.
Yes, because Shane has given me some pretty big panels for that particular show. So no, I'm definitely doing the Image Comics one.
Okay.
And yeah, a whole bunch. And hopefully I'll be doing Frank's. Yeah, hopefully doing that one. So cool. Excellent. No, but yeah, we've kind of showcased BHP here on the Hangout before. So do check out BHP Comics. Is it bhpcomics.com? It is, yeah. Yeah, do check them out. They always put out some great books. I've got a number of them on my shelves, and I'm a big fan of their work. So do check them out. There you go. Right, it is now top of the hour, so let's dive in. Welcome to Talkin Con, a cup of tea, an Englishman in San Diego. We're going to be getting into a lot of stuff today, including guest announcements at things like Lakes, which we got some updates this week. We also have some updates for MCM in London at the end of the month. We also have a whole bunch of shows that are coming up, including Comicsalopia, and the other shows that are coming up over the course of the next few months. So we're going to dive into all of those. We're also going to talk about the shows that I attended the last couple of weeks. If anything, because I did a bit of a live stream from the tap room, or one of the craft brewery pubs in Portsmouth last week. Hopefully trying to get one or two people kind of like drifting by, because they were all mingling at the end of the con and having plenty of adult beverages in the corner. I got Kieran Gillen's head sort of like floating over my shoulder, which was fun. But I am fully aware that I did fall asleep halfway through that broadcast. I was absolutely shattered. So we'll do a little bit of an update of that, and also talking about Oldham Comic Con, which I attended yesterday. But let's dive into the meat and potatoes of the show. We have a special guest. And it's good to have her joining us. We've got Nicola Love from Glasgow.
Oh, who else is on here?
You are the headliner.
Shit. Okay.
Deal with it. Welcome along. Thank you very much indeed for taking your time out of your Sunday, considering that it's blazing sunshine here in Yorkshire. So I don't know what it's like for you at the moment. It's definitely Pims in the garden kind of weather.
No, it's gorgeous here. I'm going out as soon as it's done. I'm going back out.
Well, I mean, if you're going to drink Pims, which is a vile drink.
No, we don't drink Pims in Scotland, man. No.
Fair enough. Okay, so we're going to talk to you for about half an hour or so, but mostly because I've spoken to you at a number of conventions.
Yeah.
I spoke to MCM as well, and what I really like is that you really do have your finger on the pulse of the comics landscape, and how certainly the tectonic plates shift whenever, say, for example, Repop buy into MCM, and how they maneuver their guests, and how it also affects you as well, because you're the organizer of Glasgow Comic Con.
Yes.
So, I mean, well, tell you what, we'll start with that first. Where are we with the preparations for that show? What are we up to?
We're pretty much done. Our full plan will come out next week. Our panels and our programs will come out next week, maybe the week after. I got one, potentially two more guests to put out into the world, and then we're just on a countdown. I mean, we're just shy of 2 months out, so if I wasn't that at this stage, I would be concerned.
Fair enough. I mean, what kind of lead-up time do you have for your convention? Is it a 12-month window from the moment that the last one stops, or what kind of lead-up do you have?
Well, so this year I kind of started planning it quite early, and I thought I had a lot of ducks in a row by the time Thought Bubble kicked off last year. And I was like, yeah, nailed it. And then you kind of get to the top of this year, so like January time, and people are like, oh yeah, I've now got some books I didn't anticipate having, so I've got some deadlines into now. And so things shift. So I think probably like 7-8 months is probably the ideal lead time I have found. So you can kind of take it easy, and then it's just this low-grade stress from about now until it's done.
Fair enough. If we can kind of do a little bit of a kind of 60-second advert, your headliners, kind of the things that definitely stand out for this year's show.
We got Chip Zdarsky over, which I'm hugely excited about. Love him. Got Frank Quietly is coming back. He's always been very, very good to us. Got Declan Shalvey over. Going to talk about it a bit more on Monday. We got Brian Stelfreeze over. That's quite exciting. Who else have I got? Nick Roche does Transformers. He's over. Al Ewing, who you were just talking about from Oldham, this week, he is coming back this year. And I'm sure I've forgotten someone, and now it's going to come back to keep me in the arse. But
I think we've kind of talked about this online a little bit, about the equation between male and female creators on Comic-Con lists. What female creators have you got on your lineup so far?
I have Tanya Roberts coming, and who I love. I love Tanya so much.
Yeah.
Other than that, I'm afraid I have a little bit of a sausage fest this year, which I'm not super stoked about. But
I think we talked about this as well. A lot of shows are this year.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it just happened that a lot of things fell apart in kind of February, March time. People I had teed up could no longer do it, and it happens, and it's unfortunate. But when it happens at that stage in the game, replacing those people proves slightly problematic. I'm hoping that, to like redress the balance a little bit next week, but it's not where I would like it to be, because I'm usually banging the drum, going like, where are the women on your lineup? And this year I'm doing it to myself, which kind of sucks.
When I was talking to yourself and also a couple of other people online about that, we kind of like were bemoaning the whole idea that it, like you say, sausage fest is definitely the term that comes up. But then it also turns around that you look at a number of books that have been announced this year, and a lot of titles that are being put under certain banners by not only the big two, but also the likes of Image and Valiant and all these publishers. They're actually taking on board a lot more female creators, and it's not a case of they're so busy. They're so busy.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is you have to respect people's work schedules, and people's work schedules change as well. So someone who says yes to something in September, are probably not on half the books they are by the time you work your way around to kind of February, March time, when it's time to nail them down properly and announce them. So there's some people who couldn't make it this year who will hopefully come for our 10th next year. I don't know. I think the bigger shows have some work to do. You look at like, Reed shows, Showmaster shows with like big budgets. I think there's a difference between making the effort to invite those creators and put them at the forefront of your show, and not having the inclination to do it in the first place. And I think it's quite obvious where certain shows lie in that.
I think also with some shows, it's very difficult, or it seemingly is very difficult for them to kind of find that balance between the headlining guests and those that also fill out the tables and make a solid lineup, if you know. And I think MCM is slightly struggling with that regard, certainly with the London show and a couple
have they announced comic folk for that show?
They've announced a couple of guests for this one. I'm wondering if it's going to be very much like last year, where it's a handful of comic guests, and they're going to make it more about the indie and small press here in the UK. This show, the show in May, but then concentrate on the October show for the big headlining guests. I think that's what their model is going to be. So then they just focus it all on one show in the year. If anything, because I think the announcement from Showmasters this week about Rob Liefeld will have certainly rattled a lot of cages.
Good for them. Your move, Reed.
That's a hell of a get. That's a hell of a land.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like not before time. I feel like if London Super Comic Con was still going, that's a guess they would have had.
Yeah. The organizer for London Super Comic Con is now aligned with MCM. He's going to be their talent kind of scout, as it were, for the Comic Village and for the comic talent. So I think we're going to see his influence.
Is that just to stop him restarting his own event now?
Well, yes. It's a case of, no, let's if he can't do his own, then let's have him do ours. But what Tony's doing with Showmasters, and like I say, with Rob Liefeld, I'm also curious to see then, like I say, that balance between, I mean, to get Rob Liefeld on a plane is good. That they must have thrown a dump truck of cash at the guy just to get him on a plane. It's his first international flight. I mean, he must be.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of people, what people don't appreciate is, folk, that do these shows overseas. Some of them just don't like flying. Some of them don't like international travel. Certainly some of the more legacy creators, they just, a flight just completely wipes them out, and they can't do a weekend show and go straight back, and it exhausts them. They need to work. It's a huge undertaking to do so many conventions. I think, especially when you're not actively working, trying to actively push yourself out there and reach out to new readers, then you have to have some kind of incentive to do it. I mean, he certainly doesn't need to boost his profile, does he?
This is true. This is true. But so, like I say, I'm very curious to see what the rest of the lineup will be for the London Film Comic Con show. I mean, they've already announced quite a reasonable lineup for the comics guests, and it's not too shabby. But it's that balance. I think what I'm trying to talk about is that. I mean, you can have. I mean, MCM had it last year when you had your Frank Millers of the world, you had your Jimmy Palmiottis, you had that Batman lineup, and then you have to kind of work. It can't just be them and everybody else, and it gets a bit difficult that way, because then it does become very marginalized between those headlining guests that get the big spotlight on them and the Comics Village at MCM. I think we kind of saw that, where a lot of the tables got kind of marginalized because all the attention was being focused on the headlining guests.
Yeah, I mean, that show, I think I saw you one of the days, and there was Frank Miller on one side and Chris Claremont on the other side, and I was manning Vincent and Frank Quietly's table in the middle. And I was like sitting there like, spot the odd one out in this row of like me, Chris, Frank, John Romita Jr., and like Andy Cooper. I was like, I shouldn't be here.
You listen, while I'm a big appreciator of those guys' works, I preferred looking at you. All right. Frank Miller is a great comics creator. He ain't going to be appearing in GQ anytime soon. So let's call it where it is. Call it is. What was your experience of MCM last year? And indeed, what's your experience of cons? Because that's the great thing about yourself. You do go out to check out these shows as much as you can.
Yeah, I mean, the MCM that we had, to be honest, it was the first one I had been to in years. That was the MCM in London, October last year. That was the last one I'd been to in, maybe 4 or 5 years. And, we only went.
Was there any reason why? Why you hadn't gone for a while?
Well, I mean, apart from my innate bitterness that they set up camp in Glasgow a couple of years back, there was absolutely no incentive to go, especially in Glasgow. Even the guest list was kind of non-existent. It was an exhibition hall, and it was flashy and it was loud. But if you unpacked what was actually in it, there actually wasn't a ton. So there was no reason. There was a wee comics village, but we had Glasgow, and at that point, Edinburgh Comic Con also existed. So I'd go buy comics from those guys there. I had no reason to pay, probably about twice what both our cons were charging to go in for MCM. And I've never been a massive fan of pop culture events. I've got nothing personally against them. I just, not personally for me. So I never sought out the bigger MCM shows that had the bigger lineups. And I felt up until recently that they probably did Scotland and some of the more satellite shows a bit of a disservice.
Yeah.
So we only checked out London because Reed reached out and invited Vincent. And we headed down there last year. And we had a good time. It was good. I think Reed's influence, it was great.
MCM is a strange beast. Purely because, like you say, it brings this talent over. And you have, even at some of the smaller satellite events, you had the likes of Jeff Darrow coming to MCM Birmingham.
Yeah.
But we've talked about this online, and I've shared a picture of Jeff looking very lost and despondent, looking around and trying to find if anyone's noticing him on a table which has got no cover on it, with a name banner which he's drawn by hand, and there's no love heading in his direction, least of all from MCM. Where I think what I want to ask is, how much do we let the comics guests get on with it? Because when you go to some comics village, it is a case of they're grown-ups, they can handle their own tables, they can manage themselves, and they can go. But then you have the international talent, which at the end of the day, or even some of the bigger headlining talent, but they do need some kind of love showing their way, even if it's just a case of a backdrop of some description. And it seems that some shows, not just MCM, kind of drop the ball in that regard.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak for bigger shows. We have, the show that I run is incredibly small, so we, look after guests as best we can. Because I appreciate them making the trip. I appreciate that, you're not going to make the money at my show that you're going to make it like New York Comic Con or, So for us, it's about getting people over, meeting fans that they wouldn't ordinarily get to meet, people getting the chance to meet creators that they wouldn't ordinarily get to meet. But I mean, over here, people go to New York Comic Con because it's a huge show. You know, they can make a decent amount of money. You know, they have the meetings that set them up for the next, the next 12 months. MCM London, the bigger shows in here, you know, they don't do that yet. Yeah. So, you know, would suggest
it's certainly not a networking show. Yeah, I get that.
No, totally. So, and I don't know if the kind of
I'm wondering if that's something that Repop would like to introduce, because I mean, speaking to a number of the Repop people, they want to bring that New York Comic Con aspect and bring that flavor into the MCM shows. But I'm wondering if the MCM model, that was my fear when we got told about the deal, whether the MCM model can actually accommodate that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a Diamond Retailer event before the last MCM. We did that. You know, and it was of tremendous benefit to us. We did a talk and it was great. But I mean, it's like Thought Bubble exists.
Yeah.
Like, you know, MCM, it kind of established itself for one thing. And I guess maybe we're being a little bit too quick to be like, oh, well, Reed's not, you know, stamped all over it. They've had one event and a couple of the shows outside of London. So maybe give it time, see what the priorities are. But look after your guests. Bring them some lunch. Fuck's sake.
That makes sense. I mean, also something that I've noticed when it comes to the comic-centric shows, certainly here in the UK, we're starting to see more shows wanting to take on board the festival kind of vibe. The Eggs, the Anglomay. We've got Comic Salopia just coming down the pipe. Do you think that's something that we're gonna see more of as more towns and cities want to get involved in the Comic-Con magic and kind of get more of a festival vibe going off?
Maybe. I mean, there's a show up in Scotland called Dunfermline Comic Con, and that kind of has like a mini Thought Bubble vibe. You know, it's got marquee in a main building, and it's very relaxed, family focused, comic centric, in the same way that my show is. You know, and it's a nice vibe. It's a lot of families. You know, some people are, you know, bringing their comics to get signed because they know the creators, but a lot of times people are just experiencing those creators for the first time. You know, it's not a big autograph hunting show. It's not a big, you know, paying over the odds for selfie with fucking Stargate Extra. It's, you know, it's about discovering books and dressing up and having fun, and it's nice and relaxed. So I can see why folk are trying to replicate the model. I mean, the UK is really small, though. And so I kind of, you know, I don't know how much our landscape can take of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think that setting up these events to appeal to people who aren't necessarily natural comic readers is a bad thing. I think the complete opposite. If you're having these like kind of free, open events that are allowing people to walk in and discover creators, discover books, you know, that's a good thing for everyone.
I think that's something that, I mean, I'm going to be talking about the show a little bit later, which is Oldham, which I went to yesterday. And the fact that it was a free convention. That you could, I mean, anyone can just bring their kids in. And they also did a really cool thing. There's, they managed to get a whole bunch of these Marvel, like, he's about A4. Is it A4? Is it? No, A3, the big one. So A3 fold-out card sticker book. Which Marvel did. Okay. And what you end up doing, you don't get the stickers, you go around from each creator and you get them to sign it. And it broke down, and the kids were running around, and it was also almost like a treasure hunt. It was awesome. And it broke down that kind of, because then you can have them signing away and say, oh, what do you think of my drawings? Oh, that's pretty. And it breaks down that barrier between an attendee, especially a young attendee, and this person who's on the other side of the table who they do not or may not necessarily know. And it was really cool to have that, and the whole all ages and the family friendly, the next generation of comics readers. I thought that was really encouraging. Do you think that perhaps some cons do price themselves out of that kind of encouraging market?
Sure, but I mean, I think everybody's different. It depends what your financial situation is. I would love to be able to let everybody in for free to mine. Logistically, like that's not financially possible at this point. If my local authority want to chuck money at me, then, you know, and maybe somewhere down the line. I think, you know, events are all different. It depends who you're catering to. I mean, Comicslopia in Shrewsbury is kind of tiered, isn't it? Like you can wander in and out of it for nothing and then pay per panel, right?
Yeah.
Which is kind of like an interesting structure because, you know, you're kind of opening access to everybody. So families in the town centre will be able to wander in and discover some comics, pick up some comics. But unless you want to sit down with a Q&A or sit down for a special event, you know, that's kind of where you recoup it back. So maybe there's something in that kind of structure. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think shows over here price themselves particularly high. I do think something's not quite translated, whereas in the US shows, paying for autographs, paying for signatures, CGC is huge over there. And you can see it kind of creeping into MCM now. And I don't think the UK is particularly prepared for that.
Personally, I hope that, I mean, I'm starting to see a little bit of a backlash against CGC and just slabbing in general. Because I think we've had that attempt at a speculative comics landscape, and people are suddenly realizing that there is no real money in speculating on comics. It's more a case of let's just buy them to read them. So slabbing them behind plastic, while I will not begrudge anyone who does it, especially for legacy comics. But admittedly, I get mine signed almost like the old football sticker books, just to see if I can do it. So I've just had my entire run of Kieran Gillen Star Wars done. Yeah, I've got to catch them all. That's pretty much all I'm taking. I'm just doing it like that.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't think there are any shows over here where I look at the price point and think, Christ, like, what are you doing? Yeah. But I mean, I do think, you know, if you pay like, you know, what are you paying, 16 quid to get into MCM for a day, and then you've got to pay, you know, £5 every time you want a book signed on top of that. But I mean, I think the American audience is obviously, you know, so vast. So touting comic books is a much bigger thing over there than it is here. Although God knows it's it's a thing here. So I mean, I guess it's just how that works. But I mean, at the end of the time, people are giving up their time to be at shows and things. So, you know, you're not really begrudging people, because a lot of times they're not getting paid to be at the shows. Yeah. So I guess there's maybe a fundamental shift that needs to change behind the scenes to make it more accessible to fans.
When it comes to going to shows, is it more a case of going to catch up with people? Is it a case of seeing who's being invited and what guests are going on? Or do you keep your eyes open on how shows are structuring themselves and how they're actually, you know, is that, you know, learning from things that they do? I mean, what's your focus when it comes to going to shows?
I think I have quite a reputation for my motivation for going to shows to prop the bar up. It's certainly like that will certainly be the case in Shrewsbury. It was certainly the case in Portsmouth.
What is your drink of choice? I've got to keep that in mind when we
gin and tonic, my friend.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
No, I mean, like Thought Bubble's a huge one every year, and it becomes this kind of, everyone I know, like I see people from Scotland maybe at Thought Bubble every year. I don't necessarily see them in Scotland. I see them at Thought Bubble at the end of the year every year. You know, we hang out. Sometimes it's a case of going to speak to people to tee them up for your own show. You know, some overseas conventions, it's a case of, you know, making connections with retailers and with distributors for books down the line. I do get some work done, I promise you. But
when it comes to Thought Bubble, do you think that's a show that has grown into a monster that it can't control now?
No, not at all.
No?
No. Well, what do you mean a monster?
Certainly when it moved to Leeds and you had the multiple tents, and because it is incredibly well curated, it has a huge slew of talent there. In previous years, it was a case of creators doing very well financially at selling their books. But for the last couple of years, it was a case of people walking into the tent, seeing this long line of headliner, bang, bang, hit, fantastic, and suddenly going, well, I've only got 30 quid. Where do I spend it? And it ends up they kind of like, oh, I'll come back. Oh, I'll come back. And then no one really got any money, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if it's grown too much. They need that. I mean, I think some shows do need that reining, so it's a little bit more focused, perhaps.
I think it's hard if you've got, it's one thing looking after your guests. It's another thing, your small press that you're charging for tables that you're potentially using to finance your event. And I mean, this isn't for Thought Bubble, this is for everybody, is I think you've got to be careful to take in a number of tables that you can comfortably manage so that people aren't financially wrecking themselves from doing their show. And that's probably the most stressful factor in running my con is, fitting in everybody who applies for a table. Having to reject people this year sucked. But having to turn around and say, well, I think we had maybe like, I don't know, 40 or 50 people that I had to say no to. And, it wasn't because I wouldn't have wanted them at the show. It was because I was like, well, if I fit 40 or 50 more tables in here, you're kind of diluting that attention away from everybody else. And you get mad at me and you don't want to do my show again. So, I mean, Thought Bubble's incredibly popular. It has a reputation that it does for a reason. So, I mean, I can't speak to that for, being too big. But I do think if you're a show that's got a lot of small press, you've got to be careful to take care of them as best that you can, or, bring the people in, like bring the volume of people in, bring the type of people in that are going to want to take the books. But I mean, for me, Thought Bubble, I spend loads. I go in and, there's people that you see every year. If they've got a new thing out, you go back and you buy it. I mean, you are kind of overwhelmed with the choice, but I mean, you could say the same thing like walking down like New York Comic Con, Artist Alley, like that's insane. I did it for the first time last year and it's like, shit.
I'm hoping to go to New York Comic Con because I'm not doing San Diego this year. Has freed up a lot of money because just getting out to the West Coast is extortionate, and you can understand why there's a lot of European and Brit and Scottish talent that go to New York because it's easier to get to. It doesn't cost as much, and you get it. I not only that, but I've been invited by Mike Armstrong. This will be year 4 that I've been told that I can go over, and if I keep turning him down, he's going to stop asking. So I need to do something about that. So I do want to go. So is there anything from the US shows that we feel that we could introduce to UK shows, UK and Scottish shows?
I mean, I still think, we just don't have the big publisher presence. Yeah, I mean, I think Thought Bubble hits as close to it as any show does. You see Reed, kind of their friendship with DC started translating to the MCM Londons, but we don't. I mean, I guess it's a bit of a contentious subject now, but we don't have Lion Forge or Oni or Dark Horse or.
That's a whole other subject.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of touched on that on the Periscope for this.
Yeah, but I mean, we don't have that same kind of like publisher level coming in, because I think like those bigger shows are massive opportunities for people to go in and introduce themselves and sort out the future of their work, and it doesn't exist outside of Thought Bubble really in any significant way in the UK yet.
Which are the shows that really excite you on the current landscape
in the UK?
Yeah,
Dunfermline Comic Con is a wonderful show. It's also not super far from me, so that is a plus. I really like Thought Bubble. Thought Bubble is, by far and away the best, I think. I always describe my show as like a C-list Thought Bubble. Like it's got the right idea. It's just a lot smaller. I mean, I guess those are the ones that I make an effort to go to. We did Portsmouth last year, and that was an enormous amount of fun.
You were missed this year.
Oh yeah, so I heard. Yeah, I couldn't make it. I couldn't swing it because we're doing Shrewsbury this year. I think I'm going to try Nice for the first time this year too.
I haven't done Nice yet. That's one show I haven't done, and I'd really like to go because I mean, there's a number of shows that I'm being I mean, attending them as a panel host as well, but also just to go along and check them out, because I mean, I think that's what I'm going to lead on to kind of wrap up and then let you get off and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Oh.
That full landscape of the convention calendar, you can only do so many shows.
Yeah.
And it is a case of picking and choosing your moment. I mean, that's something that I'm going to lead on to with the Q&A chat as well. So do dive in with what shows you're going to be doing when you're watching this. Don't jump in on the Q&A. Tell us what shows you're doing. And it is a case of, I mean, for yourself, you're obviously doing a lot of networking as well. You're doing a lot of research and tying that back to Glasgow, but you do have to pick and choose as well. How many cons do you do in the course of a year, would you say?
We did a lot last year. We did too many. Well, I mean, I did too many last year because I went from, I mean, we did Portsmouth we did MCM, which was, 3 days. It was a lot. I did New York Comic Con, which was incredible, but it was so overwhelming, and I had to be basically babysat that entire weekend because I was like, where are we going? What parties? What's happening? And then we went straight. We had Thought Bubble. So this year we've been a little bit more selective. I'm really interested to check out Shrewsbury. A few of my friends are going, so it'll be a nice time to catch up.
I am fully looking forward to getting completely bollocks with you. I'm not gonna lie. It's been a while since I've actually. I mean, I got slightly merry at Portsmouth, but yeah, I'm looking forward to losing.
Well, I mean, I think you saw me the MCM, the Sunday of MCM, sitting in that table with my head down, and you're like, "Do you want some water?" And I was like, "Yes, I do."
I'll tell you something that they've started doing at the MCM shows, and this is taken from the US model, so they can fit more in, and certainly for the premier or the platinum guests, they're starting the shows at 9 instead of 10.
Okay.
And my God, I went to Birmingham and you could see MCM staff just going, "Oh yeah, I could have done with the extra hour." It was so much fun to just look around and see them slightly struggling on a Sunday morning, and they'd clearly been indulging on the Saturday night. So yeah, that's fun.
No, we try and do one every couple. I try and do one every couple of months, because it's nice to catch up with people and it's fun. I try and do a couple of shows for fun and a couple of shows that we're tabling at, and then I try and sleep in between times.
Fair enough. Well, I mean, I'm looking forward to catching up with you at Shrewsbury. Obviously,
get yourself to Glasgow.
Sorry?
Get yourself to Glasgow.
I would love to. It's a bit of a long trek.
All right.
I'd like to.
Sorry, how far do you think Shrewsbury is from me? London?
I know.
We're breaking down that
geographical. Hang on. I will come to Glasgow. There, I've said it. Yeah. We'll see what happens. Anyway, I'm going to try. We'll try. To wrap things up, if you just want to give a little bit of a plug, then tell us about Glasgow in 60 seconds. Tell us websites and where people can find certainly all the updates that you're announcing next week.
Fab. So we are just glasgowcomiccon.com. This year we are on the 29th of June. So we're just under 2 months away. Our headliners are Chip Zdarsky, Frank Quietly, Declan Shalvey, Brian Stelfreeze. Tremendously exciting. And you can follow us on Facebook, Glasgow Comic Con, Twitter at Glasgow Comic Con, Instagram at Glasgow Comic Con, and I am just at Nicola Love. Excellent stuff.
Like I say, you've got a hell of a lineup. It's a show that has always got the best reviews, and I'm looking forward to seeing more of those in person, possibly.
Yes.
When the show happens. Nicola, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much for having me.
I think we've scratched the surface, really. We kind of brushed over a lot of topics, but
you can do a drunk version at Shrewsbury and I'll tell you what I really think.
I like the sound of that. I really do. Thank you very much indeed. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
Thank you
Take care.
Bye.
Take care. So there you go. That is Nicola Love. Sorry, Nicole. I always want to call her Nicola. Nicole, but it's not. It's Nicola Love. It's a great show, which has gotten itself a lot of buzz around it. Do check out Glasgow Comic Con if you're in that neck of the woods. Right, a bunch of people that are chatting on the chat box, and I know that I've been missing out on it. I do apologise, but let's just go for the headlines from what I can spot and what I have been seeing go by. Michael P. San Diego Comic Con is an incredible bargain. Yeah, I believe so as well. Admittedly, we are getting a gnat's testicle away from it being a little bit too much, but for the sheer amount of content, okay, here's the difference. Yes, it puts on a sheer amount of content, but you can only really see a certain amount. It's what you're actually paying for your certain amount. And you can only fit so much in the day, especially when you may have a day taken up lining up for a panel such as what may be happening in Hall H. It swings and roundabouts. It's what you get out of it. But for the moment, still, yes, I think there's a lot of value in San Diego Comic Con. Omar Hassa, any show will be expensive unless you live in the city. It's just you suck it up and pay if you want to go. I appreciate that as well. I am a little bit financially decrepit at the moment, and I went to Glasgow and I still spent 20 quid on comics. It's what you want to spend. It's what you have available and what you want to put. At the end of the day, what you put in is what you get out. I totally go along with that. Let's have a look. Hotels, we all know that is a curse word. It's tough because the hotels, there are still some hotels available up on Mission Valley for San Diego Comic Con. You can get some good Airbnb bargains, I know, that are still floating around at the moment, but it's just proven still that tough nut to crack when it comes to attending San Diego Comic Con. It's just proven so difficult. Let's have a look at this. We've got ourselves, oh no, don't become the San Diego Comic Con the UK. Tell your metaphorical Twilight to keep walking. MCM is definitely aiming towards the pop culture market of all of that. So they have embraced the Twilights and the pop, the media and the television guests. I think that's the reason why it is such a contentious issue when it comes to conventions here in the UK, because ReedPop have bought into the MCM brand. They are bringing a lot of baggage of their own shows with them, which involves reintroducing the comic element to a Comic Con. It's whether the MCM model can actually maintain that, but we'll see how we do. For myself, the show that's at the end of this month, you do have your Sebastian Stans, you do have David Harbour, who's going to be showing up. You do have some great guests, but nothing too much in the way of your comics guests. It's what they announce in October. That's where I think things are going to be interesting. Dan Berry, I think I did 13 cons last year, maybe 16 planned this year. Yes, that's hardcore. I don't know how many people are going to be doing that, but Andrew English is doing MCM London and Birmingham, London Film and Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, Supernova, and TF Nation. I'm not too familiar with those last two. You're going to have to tell us a little bit more about those. Omar Hassa, I'm not saying that a movie following a Girl Can't Smile. I think it is going into more the whole the Twitter thing, the Twilight thing. Okay. Leanne D, come on, Leonard. It's almost a 5-hour drive for me to just leave the state of Texas, and almost 11 hours to go west to leave the state. Yeah, I know I'm being a bit. I'm being a wuss. I get it. I'm gonna have to possibly Google Maps how it would take me to get up to Glasgow. And to be fair, it's been a while since I've headed that far north. I haven't ventured past the wall for a while. So I wouldn't mind going up to Glasgow. I enjoyed my times when I went up there, but so when I did go up there, I had family, so I had the kind of reason to go for. Leanne D as well. Nicola is quite lovely. Yes, she is. She's fantastic. Let's have a look at this. Omar Hassa, with a new bus schedule, will Mission Valley be harder? I don't think it'll be harder, or certainly if you are attending taking a hotel from Mission Valley, I don't think it'll be harder in terms of if you are a general attendee. If you are a hardcore attendee that's wanting to do a lot of lining up or early lining up, it's going to make it harder because you're going to have to make that commitment. You're going to have to make that choice between either getting an Uber or a Lyft, lining up before midnight, lining up after 4. So doing a full night camp out, or risking not getting into the panel by getting there too late, or just biting the bullet and getting a lift. At the end of the day, Lyft and Uber are going to do very nicely out of San Diego this year, which is good. Let's have a look. Supernova is in Australia. Sounds like Repop. If you're making that trip, sir, all the very best to you. Now, there you go, Leanne. That's putting your mileage in. Good grief. Danbury, Clackean to Glasgow is around 3.5 to 4 hours per Google Maps. Okay, so from here to London then. It's still a bit of a trick, but we'll see what happens. Leonard, would you actually get anything signed by Rob Liefeld? Not at the price he's charging, because I just can't afford it. But I did put a amendment to a number of my Facebook and social media posts about the Rob Liefeld announcement, because he's actually advertising his own meet and greets outside of the MCM machine, as it were. It's not being controlled by MCM. He's doing a meet and greet package, a VIP package, and a meet and greet package, and they're not cheap. But you then look at the prices that he's charging in the States, and it actually works out about $15, $20 cheaper per book over here in the UK. So if you're a hardcore collector, you'd actually be beneficial to fly over to the UK. Certainly if you're on the West Coast, East Coast, fly over to the UK, have a stack of books to get signed, and it would actually work out cheaper. Very, very strange. Would I get anything signed by Rob Liefeld? I have a number of books I would love to get signed by Rob Liefeld. That's the end of at the end of the day. London Film and Comic Con, the intention is that I am going to that show. I've yet to really kind of talk to Tony Lee about possibly panel hosting at that show. But even if I did, it's who would get assigned to what. So who knows? 4 hours is a trip, quick trip in Texas. Lol. Yeah, I get that. Omar Hassa, I'm doing 5 to 6 hours each way for San Diego Comic Con. Yeah, I appreciate the commitment that people put in. And yeah, here in the UK, I mean, it's when I'm moaning that it's too far for me to get to the new home for Thought Bubble, which is 50 minutes up the road. Why am I bitching and moaning? And not only that, but the guest list for Thought Bubble is already shaping up nicely. But also Lakes is looking particularly tasty as well. I knew that's where Dan Barry was going to jump in. I'm doing 15 minutes each way. He's a local lad, so he can do it. Fair enough. So let's talk a bit about a number of the announcements that did come out this week. Rob Liefeld, who is coming to London Film and Comic Con. This is the last week of July. It's the week directly after San Diego Comic Con. I'm curious to see how that's going to affect San Diego if he's going to go, because it'll basically mean him doing San Diego Comic Con and then flying to the UK. It's his first non-US Canada convention appearance. It's the first time he's gotten on a plane, and he's coming to London. That's huge. That's huge. It's a massive get for Showmasters, and it is another it's something that's been negotiated over a great deal of time, and to actually get him to do this, that's impressive. And it says a lot about how the landscape has changed here in the UK with the ReedPop MCM deal, bringing all of that talent in October. Other conventions have had to step up, and we knew this was coming. It's something we discussed a year and a half ago when the deal first got announced, that we knew that Showmasters would have to take things up, that NICE would have to take the next step up. Portsmouth, which is a small con on the South Coast, went out of its way to get some incredible talent coming over. Thought Bubble is going to knock it out of the park. Lakes are knocking it out of the park. I'm just looking at the Lakes announcement that came out this week. Some incredible guests that are lined up for that. Becky Cloonan, you've got Declan Shelby, Doug Braithwaite, Duncan Fagredo, Garth Ennis, who's coming. That's a big get for Lakes. John McCrae, who's coming to that show. But there is also Lawrence Campbell as well. Something that Lakes, however, is doing very nicely is providing more of a prestige and niche audience for comics. In other words, those people who don't necessarily read Justice League or read Catwoman. It's those who would be reading Saga, who would be reading Criminal, and All My Friends Are Junkies. It would be those people that would know the history of Hellblazer, or would know the Vertigo stories. It's a little bit more of a higher echelon of comics reader. Whether that's a little bit too snobbish or a little bit too highbrow, at least it's a show that's catering to that. You've got a lot of talent that's coming over from, I believe there's a large Canadian contingent that's coming over. They are doing something very clever in that they are aligning themselves with other international conventions. So Lakes would then curate a group of people to go over to, say, for example, Tokyo. Tokyo would then send a group of artists here to the UK who we would not usually get to see. The average person on the street wouldn't have no clue who they are, but they would be incredible artists appreciated by people who know their artwork. I think that's a very clever model. So there we go. Let's have a look at this. Super Cat Chick. I'm traveling from Kansas City to San Francisco, especially to get a pop vinyl. So there's that. Hardcore. Well done. Let's have a look at this. Leonard, I don't know what airport to fly into to get into Lakes. Lakes, that will be East Midlands. That would be the Midlands airport, and then just come across the Pennines. So there we go. Let's have a look. Omaha. I'm also a big Lee fan. This is Bruce. No, Bruce Lee. But let's have a look at this. I'll stick to Amazon. Then again, I'm 30 minutes away from San Francisco. I can go whenever I want, and also have a Lee pop, so that factors in as well. Fair enough. It's about what you want to get out of a show. MCM are announcing for the show at the end of this month, in a couple of weeks' time, a lot of pop vinyl exclusives. Except a lot of Americans are then looking at those announcements and going, well, that's GameStop, that's Hot Topic. They have been exclusives in the US. We're just getting them rebadged. So, you know, swings and roundabouts, and we are yet to get a truly Funko Europe exclusive. When will that happen? Could that happen in October, perhaps? I mean, I think it's only a matter of time before there's a London exclusive pop Funko. That will be desirable by a lot of people. Let's have a look. Mojito clock, break one out. I'd love to get a mojito going at this point, because Scobie said I've been suffering from a cold and a chest infection for the last 2-3 weeks. But hopefully I'm going to shake that up for, like I say, the shows that I'm going to be doing down the line. I did announce on Twitter this week that I won't be doing MCM London as a panel host. They've agreed that what they're going to do is they're going to fill their panel content with people who are actually exhibiting at the shows. So they're not necessarily needing a panel host to steer the conversations on their Comics Village tables. It's very clever, in their Comics Village panel, sorry. It's very clever. It's self-contained, and that way they can get people that are exhibiting at the shows to kind of showcase their own wares. It's something that they did with the creator stage in getting podcasters involved to fill out the content. It makes sense. I hopefully might be going down just to kind of visit and talk to the MCM guys, because I do want to talk about what's planned for later on in the year, because they have said that there is the potential of me hosting on the bigger stage when they get the comics guests that would then appear on, say, the live stage or the main stage. I would be the person that they would call on to host those panels. Fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. Let's have a look at this. Omaha. I would go to the UK for a dwarf pop. I'm guessing he's meaning Red Dwarf. Yes, he's talking about Red Dwarf. But I also like the fact that he did actually do a typo, and it's I would go to the UK for a dwarf poo. I'm sure John Rhys Davis would accommodate you if you asked him nicely. That's just put that out there. If you want to contact him on Twitter. Maybe it's a service he can include on his site, a dwarf poo that he can then mail to you. So fingers crossed. Right. I think we might actually be able to wrap things up. I do know that I wanted to kind of touch on Comic Con Revolution, which is taking place next week, but it's a show that I haven't actually been doing a lot of research into in terms of what makes it stand out as a show. I've had a look at the lineup, especially for the comics guests, and there's nothing that's really kind of jumping out and grabbing me. But it does speak volumes that the level of the guests are a little bit more uniform. There's no upper tier, there's no lower tier. It's a very uniform creator lineup. I think they've done a clever thing with that, in that I'm trying to work out a way of doing this and not damning with faint praise, in that it's not great, it's not bad, it just is, if that makes sense. I would like to see what Dan brings from Comic Con Revolution. I'd like to hear what his reaction to that show is, because he has had a lot of fun in previous years. So fingers crossed, we'll hopefully get some content from him in the next couple of weeks. That's Comic Con Revolution, taking place in Ontario next week. And I think that's pretty much it. Thank you again to Nicola for joining us on the show. Hope you enjoyed that chat. We could have gone on for a lot longer with her, but the sun is setting over the yard arm, and I wanted to let her go off and enjoy at least some of the rest of the sun of the day. We will be meeting up at Comixolopia. We will be bringing you a live broadcast from that show. Hopefully myself and Nicola and a couple of other people will be slightly half cut, and we'll talk at length between 6 and 7 on that weekend. It's the first weekend of the month, so it's only a couple of weeks away. That's Comixolopia, that's taking place in Shrewsbury. You can find out more about that at comixolopia.com. So there we go. Right, do take care. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Again, please do check out the posts that we've been putting up on the Convention Collective, especially when it comes to the panels that I recorded at Portsmouth Comic Con 2 weeks ago. Some great chats in there with the likes of Kieran Gillen, Tommy Lee Edwards, Will Simpson. You had Declan Shelby in there. You had a whole bunch of people which we recorded, and I've posted about 10, 11 different panels. You can find them certainly all on the SoundCloud. I'm creating the rest of the shell posts for them tomorrow. It's about 2 or 3 that are missing, but for now, you can find them on the Convention Collective website. Also on there, as posted today, was my review of Oldham Comic Con, which did have the panel recording with Al Ewing, talking about the Marvel 1000 project, which is coming out in August. He did explain how when they announced all the creators that were involved in the project, his name came up about 14 times. But what in actual fact that means is he's creating, or he's doing the through line for the whole story. So he's providing the spine, as it were. So it's a lot of one-page shots, but with different artists. So that's why it felt that he seems to be creating a lot of the book. He's not. He's just doing kind of like a nice little through line through that book. He explains all about that in the panel, and he also talks about a possible creator-owned project, which he's doing later on in the year, which was rather exciting. That's Al Ewing. And also I spoke to Dennis Whittle, who's the guy who organized Oldham Comic Con. Do check that out. That's going to be on the website at the moment with a whole bunch of photos as well. Hope you enjoyed the review. So there we go. Just dive in and check out what we've got on the site. Also, a bunch of reviews that are going up. Dan and the team are doing great guns with stuff on in the sandbox section of the Convention Collective. Go to theconventioncollective.com/sandbox for all of the stuff that Dan is putting up, including Samantha Maybe's review of a new comic, which has got us very excited, being published by IDW and Black Crown. That's Eve Stranger. It's a very good comic indeed, and Samantha has posted her review of that, as well as posting her thoughts on Game of Thrones. You have the penultimate episode tonight. She'll be having her thoughts up on theconventioncollective.com tomorrow So do check that out. Do take care. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We will announce who we've got on for next week's show at the beginning of the week. We're still talking to them, finding out if they're available and making sure that they can come and join us. See you soon. From me to you, enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And indeed, in the States, enjoy the rest of your Mother's Day. Take care.